You're tuning in to the Bueno Power Hour podcast. Everybody, welcome to another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. I am your host, Arthur Bueno, and I am speaking with Michael Behlen, who's a Fresno, California native, photographer, publisher, and we kind of just have a conversation about his beginnings, successes, failures, and what his future endeavors are looking like. So, pretty awesome conversation. I love this guy, and he's someone that I aspire to be. So, enjoy the episode, guys. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. On this episode, I have with me here today Mr. Michael Behlen. And if you guys don't know about him, he is the former co-founder of Prime Magazine. I had the pleasure to getting to know him over the years and kind of seeing his progress. I was actually one of the first people that helped him out on a project, which was a zine that he released under the name Searching for Stillness Volume 1. He's come a long way from where he was before till now. He used to shoot quite a bit of digital photography. Still, at that time, was shooting a lot of band photography and such, doing weddings, and is now a, I guess, well-known publisher, huh? Is that kind of a good way to sort of put it?
A little bit.
A little bit. So yeah, I mean, I consider Michael as a great friend, a big inspiration, and sort of someone that I definitely look up to as a person in the arts who works their ass off just to create, great art. A person who doesn't really care about the money, just to make great art. I guess let's just get into it. What really made you start pursuing photography as a whole? Because you're just not only a photographer, you're also a publisher and sort of a businessman of some sort when it comes to the art of photography. Could you kind of touch up on that in your origin story?
First, thanks for having me on, Art. I appreciate it.
No problem. So it's been a long time coming, actually.
Yeah. So there was a gentleman when I was real young. I was probably about 16 or 17, back when MySpace was still popular, and there was a guy that me and Art both knew named Michael Berigian, Mr. Mike Bot. And I was about 16. He was a couple years older than me, and he just kicked a lot of ass, and everyone knew Mike, and he took pictures of all the shows, all the music, and I really wanted to be like Mike, really, when I was about 16, and that's what kind of got me into it. He really helped me, how do you put it? I guess grow into being a photographer instead of wanting to be one, and he just kind of encouraged me along the way. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. And then I started shooting band photos when I was 18. I really enjoyed that. I did a lot of landscape, but after that, I decided I wanted to see if I could make some money from doing it, right? I guess that's what we all aspire to, maybe when we're in our infant stages of that process. So I started shooting some weddings. I probably did 15 weddings at the most after 2 or 3 years, and
right,
it wasn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever dealt with a mom of a bride, but you got to have a special skill set for that.
Absolutely.
So I didn't. In my day life, I work at a bank. I've been doing that for about 10 years now. and I do enough customer service from 9 to 5 that I felt that that wasn't as fulfilling as I thought it was going to be.
Right, 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 right.
So after that, I think it was in 2013 ish, I sold all my Canon equipment, all my L lenses, all my digital cameras, and I bought an SX70. And at the time, Impossible Project was coming out with their first film and started a program called the Pioneers Program.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did is that they selected artists and they said, "Hey, we're going to send you out some film, and I want you guys to give us your feedback." So that's what I did, and the rest is history. I've been shooting instant film now for, do the math, I guess 5 years, more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And then right around that time, probably a year after, or September of 2013, you and I, you helped me create a zine for my very
Mm-hmm.
first zine, called
Absolutely.
Searching for Stillness. It was
Yeah.
56 pages, had 50 images, and it's probably still some of the best work I've ever put out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was interesting going from digital to analog to scanning analog to put it on my computer, which seemed silly. So I decided to make a zine and make it, I guess, play ping pong with from analog to digital back to something analog and tangible. So that's how I
Right,
started getting into publishing.
right, right, right. So let's I guess I kind of wanted to sort of kind of backtrack a little bit because you pointed out something way interesting for me. So you had mentioned Mike Berigian. That's how his last name is pronounced, right? Berigian.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, Mike Berigian. To anyone that knows, uh, I guess, photography in the music scene and just photography in that time, where uh, these individuals, it was Mike and there was this one other girl. I don't remember her name, dude, but she used to shoot film. She was actually shooting film quite a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah.
I don't remember her name. Um, she actually took a couple of pictures of me when I had blonde hair, and I never saw those images. I swear to
Thank
God.
God.
Yeah, it was so bad. Um, but the other person who was actually part of it uh, was actually Mike Adame, who is
Yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's funny because he was actually, I was one of his subjects for quite a while, and he sort of inspired me to take photographs and take pictures and such. He went, he never went full digital. He's always shot film, and that was something that I really thought was pretty cool and pretty amazing. And then at the same time, it was like kind of unnecessary. It's like, dude, why are you still doing this medium? Um, I never really understood it until I kind of got into it and started shooting film myself. And yeah, we did have a pretty huge photography scene, didn't we?
Yeah. And then, I mean, and then after those people kind of left the scene in that area, it was me, you, Arthur Robinson came along and with his ninja skills. And he was great. And then, I'm good friends with Bob Perro. He did that occasionally. And I felt like it's kind of a long time ago now, but 6, 7, 8 years ago, there's a lot of us that were just shooting to shoot.
Yeah, quite a bit. Oh, hold on for a second. All right. Another dropped call. Unfortunately, kids. Okay. We're sort of like talking about how the range of people after Mike Berigian and Mike Adame sort of, I guess, stopped photographing. I mean, Bob Perro was part of it. Who else was also part of it, man?
Arthur Robinson got into it
Mm-hmm.
a little bit after us. He's great, well, like I said, with his ninja skills, rolling around on the floor, getting those angles, which is kind of a performance art in and of itself, which is, I think, very interesting,
Yeah.
and in a positive way, not in a condescending, interesting way.
Sure.
But at the time, we would go to the lake and then go shoot, and then at that night go see bands and shoot, and then after the bands we'd go shoot parties, and then go shoot long exposures. Uh, after the parties ended, and I think it was like this community of growing together as artists that was
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
interesting. Uh, and we kind of all encouraged ourselves, and we were like a non-collective collective of people,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it was really cool. And as we got older, I'll be 30 here in about a month. Um, as our careers progress and responsibilities change, you have a lot less time to uh, spontaneously shoot.
Yeah.
Right now I look at the weather report, 10 days ahead of time and say, oh, I'm going to go to the lake. That sounds like it'd be really relaxing. And then I think, well, there's no clouds, so it's not going to be dramatic. So I'm going to stay home. And it's just weird, it's just kind of funny, and how our responsibilities change, and that forces us to plan accordingly, which is a lot different from how we were about 5, 6, 7 years ago, shooting with that
Absolutely.
kind of spontaneous passion. So
Absolutely. And that's kind of something that I've loved about your work, from the years that you've progressed, and I think that you've certainly, uh, I think you ended up when you started shooting instant film, um, which that's something that I definitely want to kind of touch upon. I guess a good segue to the next thing that I wanted to ask you about. So, the Impossible Project at that time, I think it was like what, 2012, 2013, or
yeah,
2011, sometime around that time. And this is when Polaroid decided to just call it quits and dump all their chemistry, get rid of all their equipment to make Polaroid film. Then up comes this company out of nowhere that decided to make this uh, bold sort of goal to bring back this type of film and such. And you were part of this. You were part of this movement. I mean, you are actually known because of participating in this movement of saving instant film photography. And at this time now, photography has gotten a little bit more stronger, and it has stayed with us because the aspect of digital photography is ruining people's careers and stuff, that anybody can take a picture and whatnot. Why did you decide to stick with instant photography, analog in general? Was it just because you were just sort of tired of, I guess, the saturation of all these digital photos coming up to the internet, or was it something that was a lot more to your vision that you said, you know what, I think I need to pursue this seriously?
I think there's a couple reasons, but I think I just wrapped up reading Walden for the first time,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a good quote that I kind of think conveys my feelings towards new cameras. He says, "Beware of all enterprises that require new clothes, and not rather a new wearer of clothes.
Okay.
If there is not a new man, how can the new clothes be made to fit?" And I think
Mm.
in a way, I was using digital photography, and a lot of the photography I was doing was bracketed, Photoshop, Lightroom, and I was shooting for digital development, and I wasn't shooting in camera, and that's kind of a me mistake, right? That's not everybody, but at the same time, it was too easy to fix what I did wrong, and at the time, the skills were so easy to come by, especially for the generation that we grew up in, that going into Photoshop and Lightroom is actually very easy. Um, so I think when I stopped shooting weddings, in between that and when the Impossible Project came out, I felt like it was just a perfect timing of an opportunity to do something that was unique, and an opportunity to be a part of a group of people that I didn't feel like. I guess the community aspect of digital photography is so big that it's real hard to form connections. But when there's only 50,000 of us or 20,000 of us shooting instant film seriously across the world, maybe only 5,000 of us actually know each other via the internet. There's a
Mm-hmm.
really tight knit community, and it feels good to
Right.
be a part of that. And it's kind of like, we were a tribe of pioneers trying to resurrect this film medium that Polaroid left to die.
Okay. And I've always been curious about that, just for the fact that, because when I remember distinctly, I think this was around like 2011 or 2012. You went into Facebook and just said, "Dude, I went straight instant film." And I'm like, dang, dude, that's pretty damn bold. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty
Yeah,
damn bold.
yeah.
And I
Because
was,
people, if I would have said that, before, like, it became bigger, and I did, everyone's like, "You're stupid. You're so dumb."
but you never followed the trend. I think that was one thing that
Yeah,
I've liked about your body of work, that it came from, shooting a lot of digital images, and I can't deny your hustle. That, first of all, yeah, you cannot tell me that Michael Behlen did not hustle to get where he's at today. You know what I'm saying? I've always loved your hustle, but the fact that you went into doing straight analog photography, I was like, whoa, that is like really, really bold. Because at the time, I think I was already living in the Bay Area, and well, it wasn't. I don't think it was so much 2012, because I think I left around 2010, 2011. I'm not even sure. But I was living in the Bay Area, and I started shooting film. I actually started shooting 35 millimeter again, using a Canon QL17. I don't know if you ever seen those
the rangefinder,
rangefinder.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And that became such a cult camera, and I shot the shit out of that thing, man.
Bellamy would be proud.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Bellamy Hunt, like, total, totally awesome for, keeping the craft alive, and like making photography and the craftsmanship of cameras almost as valuable as a diamond watch, man. I mean, this guy is incredible. But anyway, I mean, he the fact of the matter is that you really stuck with analog photography all this time, and you really took it to the next level. So what sort of I guess enabled you to kind of take portraits of these individuals and landscapes with using this film? Like, who inspired you to kind of take this style of photography?
So I think I know you and I know him, but Mikhail Kennedy was a really big pioneer in the Polaroid
Absolutely.
movement before even Polaroids went extinct in the conventional sense. I really closely followed his Passport to Trespass series
Yep.
and his zines he produced after the fact, and he was like this punk rock guy kind of mentality guy, and he openly says that he stole film from CVS so he could hop on the train and go shoot more. It was this weird no rule situation that
Mm-hmm.
was kind of liberating, where if I was shooting with my old 5D Mark II and I didn't happen to have my 35L on me, well, whatever, I guess I'm not shooting today because I only got my nifty 50 because
Right.
I'm such a gearhead.
Right.
It was
Right.
just stupid. It was just I was doing it for the wrong reasons. And
Mm-hmm.
after I saw his work, you know, it really inspired me that you don't have to shoot landscapes or just portraits or just street. You can do it all, and you could form a body of work that was cohesive yet very different at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, yeah, that's really what inspired me to start that. Um,
So that was kind of one of the individuals that sort of helped you to kind of get from taking that style of photography. And I noticed that, like, at that point, people were sort of heading to that direction, where the colors of this type of film was desaturated and such, and it almost looked, it looked very timeless. Like the photograph had already aged after you even like taken the picture. Um, so was this look sort of a thing that you sought after? Because I remember um, you started fooling around with like Polaroid land camera work, and you were just looking for like expired film. Could you kind of just touch upon that and sort of searching like this type of film, how hard it was? I mean, what was your purpose
Yeah.
of
So I
taking that?
mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
so I really liked the gentleman, gentleman amateur. He was a guy in Flickr that made the best Polaroids, and since Roid Week began on Flickr, and he used a lot of expired film at the time. He was doing more 4x5 stuff, but I loved the look of what it was. It was like this blue overtones with like yellow flow. It
Mm-hmm.
looked almost alien. So I mean, and looking back on it, it was easy to create a good photograph with that because by default it was like having a analog Instagram filter for your camera, but in the film. So uh, it really enabled me to take ordinary things and make them seem out of this world and universal at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That so with that film, I tried it out for a while, and I think the biggest part of that was getting film that actually worked. I was on eBay a lot buying uh, expired film 2006, 2007, 2008,
Mm-hmm.
and it was $50 for about 20 photos at that time. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the same time that I put out my series Drought City. Um, for our listeners, they don't know that we're in the heart of California and Central Valley. That's where I live. That's where Art's from, and we had a
Mm-hmm.
really bad drought. So what I wanted to do was go document and photograph the local reservoirs and
Mm-hmm.
lakes and show what that really looked like in the drought. And since we're from the city, it was Drought City, which I seemed very fitting.
Absolutely. And that I've always loved that body of work. It was I think the very first time you actually did documentary type of photography using instant film, was it?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So upon like, all this, you decide that after we did a publication together, I helped you sort of get your foot on the door on creating a zine. And I think the zine is since sold out, Searching for Stillness, Volume 1. And this was a collaborative effort between me and Mike. I remember that he was very interested in this type of format of photography. Well, not format of photography, format of publishing. And it was kind of a simple layout, small little book with a bunch of images. And what included in that package was one of the Polaroid images that, or at least the instant film images that had that he took of these subjects. We get into that, and then you went into doing publishing that you got really serious in, and it became Prime Magazine. I guess let's touch upon that because I remember seeing you grow in doing this project. How did it start? Where did the idea come from? Yeah, lay it on me, man.
Yeah. So in 2013-ish time frame, I was submitting a lot of my Polaroids to publications, websites, magazines to get published, and I was, I'd say, semi-successful in that endeavor. There
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a instant film dedicated magazine or website. There was a couple websites, but none
Mm-hmm.
that actually. They were more social media oriented and less to uh, showing work of instant photographers,
Oh,
regardless if that was all they did or not. Right.
mm-hmm.
Drinking beer with my buddy Franklin Lopez, who way back when, and I was kind of venting, and I was like, "Man, I submit this does this anymore." And he's like, "Well, why don't you just do it?" So I was like, okay. And then we brainstormed names, and me and him only shoot prime lenses, so hence Prime Magazine was the name, and I bought the domain name that night. It was hard after about beer 4 or 5, but I managed to do it, and and that was it, right? And then I didn't follow through for a couple months. I
Mm.
just kind of sat on it, and then one day I just was sitting and more frustration from not having anywhere to submit my photos, and I contacted a couple people, said, "Hey, I'm trying to do this thing. It's this thing called Prime Magazine. It's going to be instant film related." And what I did is I went on Flickr and Facebook and websites, um, and I looked up the guys that I looked up to, which would be like Michael Kirchhoff, Bastian Callow. Sorry, Bastian, if I mispronounced your name.
Mm.
Uh, People like them, and I said, "Hey, if I'm trying to make this zine. I don't have any design experience. I'm not a journalist, but I think we could do it." So, and we did, and it was I paid a graphic designer to do it out of my pocket to build like a template for InDesign, so that way I can kind of go in and plug everything in.
Mm-hmm.
And we went a long way from that. This year, but it worked for what it was. That first year, we put out 4 issues. We ended up putting out 6 of Prime Magazine,
Mm-hmm.
and in that time frame, we featured 15 or so artists an issue, and we did an article on the blog every other week.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned into something really quick that people were excited about this. And at the time, I was this was 2014, 2015, and I'm dad. My son is now going to be 9. By the time he was 4, 5, 6 years old, and I was working on this at night after he was in bed on the weekends, and it took over my life
Mm-hmm.
because I have a problem of getting obsessed with everything that I do, and I get burnt out. And that's probably a pretty normal thing that people experience, but um, I really went all in, and I contacted analog stores and got the zine carried in their store at probably a net loss to me after shipping was said and done because I really believed in it. And then 6 issues in, we were selling about 150 copies an issue, up from 75 or 100 from issues 1 and 2. And I looked at my bank account, and there wasn't any money in there
Damn.
because I was spending money on this and I wasn't focusing on my career. So I called it quits. I said, "Okay, guys, thanks. That's it." And it was kind of so. That's all right.
We just we just had another drop call, so I guess we could just leave off. We left off at the part where you didn't, you saw like no money in the bank account, and you said you wanted to call it quits. From there.
Yeah. So I was spending a lot of time on the magazine. We were doing interviews on the blog. During that time, we probably interviewed and did features of 120 people or so.
Sure.
And it became like a full-time job after my full-time job, after taking care of my son, after homework was done. And it was too much. I was doing it really by myself. I had the help of a couple people along the way, Bill Moore, Cheyenne Morrison. Thank you for all your help in writing. They were a big help, and that was really what kept me afloat the last 8, 9, 10 months of doing that. I couldn't have done it by myself, but it was still really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to call it quits. And, when I called it quits, a lot of people were not upset, but that's the word that comes to mind, and wanted to see it continue. But it's just really hard to do something like that by yourself. And I was, spending my Saturday mornings at the post office filling out customs forms.
Mm-hmm.
And that comes with the territory. But when you're doing that every single weekend, it gets tiring.
Mm-hmm.
So I called it quits, and 6, 7, 8 months later, with enough people saying, "Hey, let's do it. What's wrong with you? You had a good thing
Mm-hmm.
going." I decided to start over with Prime Editions. The goal was to be an indie publisher of books, and similar to like what Ain't Bad was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was moderately successful. We picked up where we left off with blog postings, doing interviews with people, and that was fun. We put out 3 books. We hosted a lot of other products on our website to sell on behalf of instant photographers. And
Mm-hmm.
then once again, about a year later, almost to the dot, I said, I wasn't seeing the results that I wanted. And I was once again, I dived right back in and became obsessed with it. And new things always feel real good. But when that new thing becomes repetition,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel that great.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the only thing that kept me going is meeting really cool people that I'm still friends with, like Bastian Kalos and Amy Heaton from the Impossible Project. She was always very kind to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nate Matos, Matt Smith, and those guys were really, really just nice to me, and I formed friendships. And then probably a couple months ago, I handed over, or as of the end of last year, 12/31/17, I made the decision to hand over the Prime Editions website to Ann Silver. Um, I think a big part of that was that after doing instant film for 5 or 6 years, I felt like we already interviewed all the people that had work out there that was of the caliber that we were willing to interview.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's my personal taste too, right? That's not speaking on behalf of Anne or anybody else, but
Right. Right.
I already interviewed my idols, and that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like our growth potential was going to be pretty limited. Not to say that it may not go in a different direction with Anne, or she's happy doing what she's doing, which is more of a community-based project. But I was just tired. So as of basically February, well, I guess we should scoot back. So the
Mm-hmm.
last project I wanted to do as a part of Prime was to put out an annual journal. So I wanted to put out the biggest book that we'd ever put out, feature more people than we've ever put out, and sell as many copies as I could. That
Right.
was the goal, and I did a Kickstarter, which was a huge gamble. I'm willing to say the word hate Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the platform. I always feel I'm not really a beggy kind of guy, and it feels like begging for money. But
Mm-hmm.
without it, I wouldn't have been able to afford to print out. Um, you know, Printing costs were about with shipping. I think it was like $6,500 or $7,000.
Wow.
So I'd have to look at my spreadsheet, but it's a lot. There's no way I could have done it, right? So I just don't have the kind of cash floating around to print something like that in that capacity. But everyone on the Kickstarter was able to support it, and we hit
Mm-hmm.
funding. I think we went up to 108, 110% of funding goal, which was
Mm-hmm.
great. And then I worked with Ann Silver, who did a lot of the writing, and Catherine White, who did design, and we put out a project, and that's what we did. And it was a lot of fun and a lot of stress. And the thing that no one tells you about running a publication is that the people who buy it are really quick to email you when their package doesn't arrive, but the artists you're trying to interview really have a hard time about getting back with you. And
Right.
I just think
Right.
that's the nature of artists in general. It is nothing personal or
Mm-hmm.
intentional.
Right.
They're just in their own world, with the exception of a handful, right? I mean, it's not everybody, but
Yeah.
so yeah, the goal was to have this out and in people's hands in January of 2018, 4 months ago, right? But we
Mm-hmm.
didn't get done with design until I think February 14th. We did our first uh, uh, draft copy from the printer
Mm-hmm.
because I had such a hard time getting either certain images were not high res enough, even though you send clear instructions, and it's just technical, right? So it took us a long time to gather that information, more than expected. But I think the pros and cons of that too, right, is that once you have the Kickstarter, people hold you up on this on their shoulders and say he's the champ, he's going to deliver. And when you
Right.
don't deliver on time, people get really upset.
Absolutely.
And I got emails and Facebook posts and saying, where's the journal? Where's the journal? And the funny part is every 14 days, every 2 weeks, pretty much on the dot, I posted an update saying this is where we're at. But I think people in a way feel that public comments help speed the process up when all it really does is frustrate the guy who's trying to do something.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and it's hard because I don't like to be on the soapbox saying I'm doing this for you guys and I'm not making any money. Where I'm the guy that volunteered with it, I shouldn't be complaining, right?
Sure.
So, but on the flip side, you feel that way sometimes. When someone was hitting the negative, and you're like, well, I've been friends with you for 4 years, and you're not being very nice to me. And I just really love photography, and I said this before to you on the phone when we're talking, but I'm just a dude that lives at his dad's house that happens to really love analog photography, and I wanted to, and I don't have a corporate office. I don't drive a Mercedes. Um, I'm not this big thing, and and I think a big part of wanting to leave Prime behind was once I formed relationships with a lot of instant artists, there was some entitlement that because I'm your friend, I should be on your website, and it felt kind of usy sometimes.
Sure, sure.
And like I said, I had to remind people that I'm not the guy you want to impress. I'm just doing this because I love it. I have zero connections in the art world. I don't have hookups for the hottest gallery or even to get you a nice book deal. I got none of that. I just love it, and I'm trying to. But I think once you become front and center, or I guess I wanted to be. Yeah.
Oh boy, we had another dropout. Sorry guys, just internet connections are just not good today. But so yeah, let's kind of just revert back to what you had said. You kind of left off of being front and center of doing this. I guess it would just continue on from there.
Yeah, I think just to sum it up is just I'm a regular dude trying to do extraordinary things, and sometimes I bite off more than I can chew, but it's still really tasty, and I really
Mm-hmm.
like it, and it's something that I would do again. But
Mm-hmm.
I think over the 4 years that I ran Prime, I learned a lot about distribution. I learned geography, believe it or not, because we had to ship to so many countries. I think we shipped to over 30 different countries,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 25 or so in that. So it was really interesting, and that was cool. I learned design. I learned interviewing. I've never had an Excel sheet full of questions than I do now. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that like the best part though was making friends with a lot of people, and I think in January of this year, I decided that I didn't really want to be front and center for the instant world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, not that I'm not this figure or anything, but I just
Mm-hmm.
happen to really like it and promote that for other people. And I just was done. I was tired. My career was taking off in the professional world, and it's still going very well. And a lot of that had to do with focusing on priorities. And I think for the last time, I'll say I'm just a dude, and I have to make a living like everybody else. And unfortunately, you cannot make a living selling zines. I know. Who knew? Who knew? Um, so yeah. So in the last I'd say 7, 8 months, I instead of doing that, I've really turned my focusing to backpacking and camping and being in nature. And I felt like I spent so much time in front of the computer dealing with intangibles that I needed to reverse that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that's what I've been doing. I think I've hiked over 200 miles this year so far.
Damn.
I've been on two backpacking trips. I'm going again in June. I've spent at least 35 nights in my tent, all while taking pictures. And I think what's interesting, um, when we talked about when I was younger, and I wouldn't go somewhere if the weather was going to be too normal because it wasn't good for pictures, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I find that now my priorities went from going hiking to take photos. It's I want to go hiking, and as a plus, I get to take photos. So instead of being
Mm-hmm.
so focused on just one thing, I've
Mm-hmm.
learned to enjoy more than one thing at once. I know that sounds crazy for you type A personalities out there, but it
Mm-hmm.
was a hard thing for me to learn that I didn't have to just focus on one thing, and I could obsess over multiple things equally. Um,
Yeah.
so I
That's
think what's funny. Oh, go ahead.
no. I kind of just wanted to sort of touch upon that because I think that um, for most people, why people burn out so hard is because they focus onto one thing, and
Hmm.
um, I'm kind of included in that ordeal just because the fact that I touch upon photography and music, but I don't necessarily put that all straight focus. I actually get to enjoy other things and allow some of those things like photography and music to sort of sit on my mind while I'm playing video games, while I'm walking around at a park, while I'm driving. So it must have really strained you to really focus on this project for 4 years, huh? To do this Prime Editions book.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what it led up to, and I want to say it was a great success. I'm really, really happy with how it came out.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was great. It was great. And just briefly talking about backpacking, um, if people like know me, they think I'm like a really social person, and I
Mm-hmm.
love hanging out, and I do, right? But I'm really an introvert, and I just fake it real well. So I really do, man. I'm happy and excited to see you, but after like 4 or 5 hours, I'm just drained and I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I keep on going back to Walden, but I think it's because I just read it and it's been on my mind. But when it comes to like going on trips and backpacking alone, he said about his time in the woods. I find it wholesome to be alone the greater part of my time. Uh, than to be in company even with the best is soon wearisome and dissipating. I love
Mm-hmm.
to be alone, and I never found the companion that was so companionable as solitude.
Ah.
And and solitude's a real good friend. I over the last, I think everyone evolves over time, but over the last 6 7 years, I've evolved from a hyper digital social media, MP3s, smartwatches to writing in journals and camping without cell phone service and backpacking.
Mm-hmm.
And I've made this lifestyle change where
Mm-hmm.
I think a big part of why, and I won't say that I'm not still overstimulated, is I think that's a problem that everybody has. And I think
Right.
we're all coming to terms with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I don't want to be on Facebook, but who else is going to like your photos?
You're right.
It's
Right.
like, oh
Right.
man, so you got to really have to think about why you're doing what you're doing. And, I found that when I was taking photos without thinking about what everyone else was going to say about them, I took the best photos I've taken.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I also, Robert Pirsig in the Zen of Art and Motorcycle Maintenance said this about technology. He said, it's not the technology that's scary. It's what it does to the relationship between people. It turns into, I'm paraphrasing, like callers and operators. And that's scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
instead of us sharing over a coffee table the photos I've taken and having conversations about the experiences, we're just taking little snippets of that and showing everybody. And it's just like that. I'm calling up the internet to post these photos, and you're just saying thumbs up or thumbs down, and there's no real connection
Mm-hmm.
there. And I think that's a big reason why my social media use has been withdrawn quite a bit. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
occasionally on there, but I uninstalled all the apps on my phone. I use my phone to make phone calls. It's weird for most people. What's funny is that I'll get a text from somebody, "Hey, what's up?" I'll pick up the phone and call them, and they say, "Hey, dude, I can't talk right now." And I say, "Why the hell did you text me then?" It drives me nuts. It drives
Right.
me nuts.
Right.
And I'm not really into like the emoji conversations because maybe we're just old now. I don't know what they mean. Like if you like say, "Hey, what's up?" and then you have like a sunglasses thing, does that mean like what? You want to? I don't get it. So maybe I'm not supposed to get it. I don't understand. So like when you or like you can put, "Hey, how are you? I miss you," right? And then you can put like an alien afterwards, and I don't understand what you're trying to convey.
For
So
all of you guys know, every time I've had a chance to speak with Mike, I don't usually text him. I
thank
usually
you.
just call him on the phone, which and that's the kind of relationship that I have with most of my friends back home. Because I never really liked doing the text message thing as much as other people do. Um, I'm an extrovert, and I do like making conversations with people. I do like my solitude as well. But goddamn, kids, pick up the fucking phone, man, and make a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Well, that's the problem is that they don't know how. They don't have the skills anymore because
yeah, they don't.
they weren't raised that way. Like if I wanted to make a friend when I was a kid, I had to go knock on a door, talk to their scary ass parents, and be
Right,
like, "Hey, can this dude come and play?" And they're like, "Maybe." And
right,
it was,
right.
and that's how we made friends. It's like, "Hey, you want to play with me?" And now kids are like, I don't know how people make friends anymore. Actually,
Yeah,
I don't.
I don't either. I really don't. I don't either. And I think that like now, like, things are being communicated by just words on a screen, emojis, and pictures that are overly processed from a phone app. So it's kind of crazy how like this whole uh, movement of society is going towards to. So now, since you had made this lifestyle change and such, to sort of just kind of wrap it up, what are you currently doing now? Do you have any new goals, any new projects are you pursuing? Because now, since you're doing, you're sort of focusing more on yourself now and leaving social media slightly behind. I kind of
Yeah.
wanted to know what you got going on for the time being. I mean, are you gonna go back into the publishing world? Are you building a body of work for you to release independently again? Because I haven't really seen a body of work that you had published yourself. It was more of, and I think that's what kind of people don't really understand is that what you were doing was to promote an art that almost died. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. In my spare time, I still shoot easily 4 or 5 packs of film a month.
Mm-hmm.
I go camping with my son and his friend, and we go fishing. And I think a big part of capturing the images that I've been capturing lately is an extension of this lifestyle that I'm trying to leave, which is hyper focused and but not in an obsessive way, right? More, I guess, would be called disciplined. So,
Mm-hmm.
I keep a really really strict schedule for the most part. I'm in bed by 9 o'clock every night. I listen to a podcast every day from 9 to 9:45. I go to sleep by 10 o'clock, and my life is very structured. But I think the discipline portion of that is what's rewarding, not necessarily the activities that I'm being forcing myself to be disciplined about. So I think it's
Mm-hmm.
more about like it's really helped my self confidence, my self esteem, and having a very structured life has helped me really put a lot of things in my life in perspective. So um, on that note, I've been working on Searching for Stillness 2 for 3 years. Every time I think I have it completed, it's not good enough. And for me, not for other people, right? I mean, doesn't everyone struggle with that? It's like, okay, all right, one more trip, one more mountain hike, and I'll have exactly what I need to fill the gaps. And then
Right.
you take those, and they're all great, and then you boot everything else out that you did in the beginning, and then you have a whole new project that has just begun again for the 73rd time.
You're right.
And it's really frustrating. But there's a break in what I see as me beginning this year of outdoors, anti-technology lifestyle. And anti is a real strong word. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
hate using the word never, right? Because I'll say, I'm never going to do that again, right? And then like
Mm-hmm.
4 years from now, I will. And someone's like, you're a liar. You said you'd never do that again. So I try not to use that word never because it gets you in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, for the most part, anti-technology. So I've been shooting a lot. I do want to release Searching for Stillness 2. I'd say I like to do it on June 11th for my birthday, but that's not going to happen. It's just too close. So realistically, it'll probably come out in December.
Mm-hmm.
Just like I said in 2017, that would come out in December. So it's anyone's guess. But I'm getting there. me and Art are going to talk about this afterwards. Probably, I need some help.
Probably, yeah, absolutely.
And I have a hard time sequencing images.
Hmm.
It's not, it's weird because I don't for other people, right? I know exactly how everyone else's images should be sequenced, but mine, no idea.
Hmm.
So doing that, I do have plans to get back into the publishing world. It's not anytime soon, everybody. I didn't bail and just restart something. But the way I want to go about it this time, I want it to be less stress and I want it to be more impactful.
Hmm.
What I found is that there was like a law of depreciating returns with what I was doing. So when it was new, everyone was excited. Everyone wanted to be a part of it. As it progressed, submissions after it's hard too because after you tell someone no, they don't submit again, even though like I did my best. I responded, I think 90% of people who ever submitted their work to Prime, and I said, hey man, I like this image, but it's just not what we're looking for right now, but next
Sure.
time give it a shot, right? And they're like, fuck you. And and it's like,
Right.
whoa.
Right. Right.
It's like
Right.
it's just like I told you I liked it, man. Like I wouldn't tell you I did if I didn't, but it just when you're doing theme issues or you're trying to have a certain level of professionalism, you can't just publish everything that comes your way just to have content.
Sure.
So, as we reach this parabola of content that we published in the past and content we're getting submitted, if there's not quality there, not that there wasn't, but maybe it's not what we were looking for at the time, and it's hard. So on that note, instead of doing a quarterly publication and doing blog posts every single week like I did for Prime for the most part, I'm not going to do a blog at all. Isn't that
Hmm.
crazy? It's funny that when I started Prime, I said I wanted to create a tangible product, right? And I did that, but then I digitalized everything.
Yeah.
So it really was against what I was trying to do from the get-go, which made no damn sense. But as you guys can probably tell, I'm not the most. I'm pretty impulsive, as
Hmm.
disciplined as I am.
Right.
I'm disciplined about my impulsiveness. But um, I'm going to start a project called Analog Forever. It's a project that I thought about when I was talking to you on the phone a couple weeks ago. I told you it's addicting to publish work. It's not something that you want to give up because once you quit, you say, I have all this free time. What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, so I'm going to do that. Nothing is set in stone. Website's built. It's not going to be launched till early spring 2019. We're looking about 10 months away from here. The goal is to do two really simple things. One, either release an annual or biannual publication, similar to the Prime Edition's annual journal. Same caliber of work, interviews, and printing. And then also simply do a monthly online exhibition similar to other websites like F-Stop, Don't Take Pictures, etc.
Hmm.
So that's what I want to do. As far as who's involved, my good friend Michael Kirchhoff has agreed to come on board as an editor. You may know him as he's one of the curators and editors for Blur magazine. He's worked with me on Prime, on a couple of things. So I'm looking forward to that. As far as that's all the news I have so far. But what you can do is go to analogforevermagazine.com and subscribe to the newsletter and just make sure you stay informed. We will be releasing updates probably within the next 30 days about what direction we plan to go.
Hmm.
And that's that. That's what I
Wow.
want to do. We'll see.
Wow. So I'm glad that you're still sticking with the publication. I guess side of things, because when I received the book, I couldn't believe the quality of it, and I couldn't believe the sequencing, the features, and these kinds of things. It's funny because these types of publications, you're basically listening to a mixtape, but you're using your eyes. You know what I mean? So it's kind of
Yeah, that's a
you,
great
you,
one. Great,
you,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? So like a rapper who gets a bunch of like different producers to help him create an album. That's kind of essentially what you guys did, was do a mixtape of instant photography. And I couldn't just. I looked at the book and I'm like, God damn, like he did it right. Like this is a good kind of like farewell to him departing from Prime. But I'm glad of your new adventures, man. I'm glad that you're still sticking with it, and we definitely need to talk about the second edition of Searching for Stillness. As we wrap this up, and before we go, is there anything that you wanted to shout out before we end this episode of the podcast?
Yeah, you can find me online at a couple of places. The main one is my main website for my personal instant work. It's don'tshakeitLikeAPolaroid.com. Guys, it's a common misconception. Please don't do that. It screws your film up. So that's my PSA in my domain name. You can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram at Michael Behlen, B as in boy, Ehlen as in Nancy. And then, just because I'm not a part of Prime, it doesn't mean you shouldn't go there. I want you to go check out all the articles. They're still up. And Silver's still writing and featuring great instant film photographers. And that's PRYME editions.com.
Awesome. Mike, thank you for being part of the podcast, man.
I don't know what else to say.
I really appreciate
Hey, thank you for having me, Art. And then I can't wait.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear it, bud.
Absolutely. And guys, make sure to check those websites out and continue to support instant photography and photography altogether. Mike, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right,
bye-bye.
Lates. So that concludes another episode of the Bueno Power Hour podcast. Just want to say thank you to Michael Behlen for joining me and sharing his beginnings, successes, failures, his future endeavors. And, I am just really excited for him. Always excited for him. Always excited for all the projects that he's about to produce. He's someone that I aspire to be. Going from a format that he started, digital, to just a very, prehistoric almost type of format, and dedicating his life to that. I mean, that's pretty bold. It's because of that change, it's where you got him today. So, but yeah, guys, you can follow me on couple of platforms, arthurbueno.com on my portfolio, buenopower.com my blog, my instagram.com/buenopower. I'm sure you listening in this podcast on youtube.com/buenopower1, and find me on Facebook, facebook.com/buenopower. And that's pretty much it. So stay tuned for the next episode, guys. Peace.